So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our presentation. Today, we're going to be discussing security, performance, and accessibility considerations for online test delivery. And we'll be hearing from Patrick Pleichart, the co-founder and solution architect at Open Assessment Technologies, a Luxembourg software company home to TAO, an open source platform for computer-based assessment built for the common good. Patrick is strongly involved in the field of computer-based assessment, conducting research and solutions management for national projects at OAT. He also has managed software engineering aspects of international large-scale surveys, including PIAC and PISA. But before we get into our presentation, we just want to give a quick overview of our company, Open Assessment Technologies. So we are driving the digital transformation in education through open source and open standards. So we are the leading assessment platform for K-12 higher ed and professional advancement with a mission to advance online assessment and empower today's learners to become tomorrow's leaders. So to date, we've delivered over 100 million tests worldwide in more than 30 languages. And it's my pleasure to now turn the presentation over to Patrick.
Thank you very much, Samantha. I'm really honored actually to have the chance to present to you what is likely the most important challenge of e-assessment solutions, namely the security of e-assessments, the scalability or performance of such a digital solution, as well as the accessibility. Right. I would like to start my presentation with a few slides, especially on those topics which are a bit difficult to demo. But don't be afraid, we will definitely do a demo right at the end of this presentation to show you basically our product called TAO Advance. Let's talk about security first. Right, I'm sure you're all familiar with this kind of articles that you can find on the web, and it's quite common nowadays to see that some of the big players in the digital ecosystem has leaked some huge amount of data. And this one in particular is from LinkedIn, and I'm sure you all likely are on LinkedIn. And guess what, right? Your email, all your emails, your profile picture, your background information, all of that is available one click away in some torrents file, so available to anyone, right? And so this is a big player, LinkedIn, and this is not an isolated case, right? I mean, this happens everywhere. Facebook, this Chinese social network, Weibo. So it's quite frequent, right? I mean, there's not a single month where there's not such a big data leak. And when we translate that, obviously, to our industry, EdTech industry, especially in assessment, and knowing that, I mean, also, I mean, some of you are parents, right? And when we translate this kind of big data leak with regards to our kids, right? And any data about our kids. It's one thing to have our professional email address to be leaked and receive maybe an email that you will flag quite wide away as a spam. It's another thing to know that your kids might receive maybe emails because their private data was leaked somewhere. So in our industry, there is no trade-off for security. I mean, we are handling data, and most of the time we are handling data from kids. So there is no trade-off with regards to security, right? So I'm here listing in a nutshell what appears to be the key features of a digital e-assessment solution like TAO Advance to address this security issue, right? And when we talk about security, it might mean different things. So first of all, it means security for the test takers themselves, right? And I would put that as a primary goal, right? We need to protect the data arising from test taker taking assessments online, right? And there are different key features for that. First, it's encryption, right? Encryption in transit. So any data flowing from a web browser to a cloud service needs to be encrypted. But also all the data at rest, right? And it's quite important that all the data at rest also mean any backup, any archive, right? Any historical operation that you have made on the data needs also to be encrypted, right? Because very often this can be forgotten, left somewhere, and become not as secure as it should be. Another feature of e-assessment solution is obviously to have secured cloud service, and there are obvious things, right? But we need to remind everyone that those are critical features to have. First is to run truth penetration tests quite often. Here at OAT, we hire external companies to run frequently penetration tests. So it's basically a company with ethical hackers, and their job is to try to break in, to get into our system. And they do that at regular basis. And for us, basically to make sure that we have top-notch protection in front of our cloud service. So this kind of penetration test is a very critical feature. Other principles, web application firewall, DDoS mitigation matters as well, right? There are ways to restrict access to a cloud service delivering digital assessments by restricting access from specific locations, specific IPs, etc., and which helps a bit mitigating DDoS attack. One small anecdote along those lines is that we are doing a lot of mandated assessments in countries, and we are doing this in particular in Italy, in Europe. And we are facing quite often attempts of DDoS. But we had a very significant one happening in Italy, where we saw all of a sudden in the morning hundreds of millions of requests going on our servers. When you and this is quite frequent, right? You need to take into account this will happen always. This will happen, so you need to be able to handle that correctly. And the outcome of that, because of our security measure, was that there was absolutely no interference with the ongoing mandated assessments, where we had about 600,000 kids taking assessments on our system, because we had the mitigation mechanism enabled, allowing this basically DDoS attack to run against local edge servers. Other principles like putting in place bastion servers is basically more advanced security techniques to avoid that there is a door open to access the cloud service, which hackers will obviously try to find. So those are key features, but in general, right, secured cloud service, penetration test, and DDoS, this will happen. You can buy online a DDoS attack on any website. You just enter the URL of this website, you swipe your credit card for about $250, and then you get an automated DDoS attack on any website. That's very easy to do. So design your e-assessment solutions to handle that. Staff security policy, it's probably the easiest attack vector, is simply to call the vendor or stakeholder, having scheduled an assessment, call the secretary, pretend you're the staker, you forgot your password. All of this happens really, and it's probably the easiest way to try to get into a cloud system. So you need to enforce staff security policy to make sure that everyone is aware about this kind of attack vectors, to make sure that this is not going to happen. GDPR procedures, there are multiple regulations. It depends on the countries, etc. But they are always quite similar. Usually it translates into the right to be forgotten, or the right to access any private data that is stored in the system about you. It is part of the security of the test taker data. You need to have the e-assessment solution to implement this as feature that can be used so that your data will be indeed forgotten. And it is quite common. A lot of web apps in general, the data stays there forever. It doesn't make sense in the e-assessment industry that we keep data after 2 years of the assessment. It depends a little bit, but it doesn't make sense to keep that forever, right? You take the assessments, you get your certificate or your results or your report. It doesn't make sense to keep that forever. And obviously, security is not only about test taker and their protection. It's also protection about stakeholder and what is at stake, right? Sometimes certification. So at OAT, we work also with a remote proctoring solution that basically allow you to check that the test taker is not cheating, right? And it's very easy nowadays, especially in COVID context where most of the things happens from home, to basically just watch your smartphone and Google for the right response. So how do you handle that, right? And I will show you basically how we handle that with a remote proctoring solution a bit later on. It's also about item exposure control, right? Because it's also easy to basically take, let's say, a picture of any item or test, right? And just disclose that on Twitter, right? And obviously your test is doomed. You need to redo it, right? So you need somehow to control that, right? And there are ways actually to control that by organizing some rotation in your item bank, question bank, and let's say mitigate this risk, right? So that is for security. I would like just to go now through the scalability aspects, and here I have only one slide on this one. So this diagram is an internal diagram. It shows basically the concurrency of test takers on our system, TAO Advance, that we faced last year, actually. And here on the vertical axis, you have the concurrency, right? So that means basically that we face peaks of 80,000 concurrent test taker clicking through our product at the very same time, right? So that is our definition of concurrency. So really clicking on the button at the same time. And as you can see, it is happening per peak every day at the same time, because since we do a lot of mandated assessments, yeah, the school day start at the same time for every schools in a country. There might be some differences, but it's pretty much the same thing. So you are basically moving from 0 user in your system to 80,000 concurrent user in your system. So you need your system to scale up, and to scale up quickly, really quickly, right? And key features, right, to basically get to a scalable system, there are the obvious things that we call horizontal and vertical scalability. So that means basically you can dynamically, automatically increase the number of servers put in place. But that is not enough, right? Because you need to do that right away. And usually this kind of scaling takes some time, right? So, and for that, you need to put in place either a scheduling. So you need to expect that you will have an increase about the concurrency while still relying on the auto scaling capability, right? Where the system needs to adapt, maybe moving from 80,000 to 90,000 automatically. But you could rely on scheduling and automated pre-provisioning. So basically starting enough servers a bit before the expected peak, while still having this automated scaling in place in case you have more than what you scheduled for, right? Reliability, it's common to see that big players like Amazon infrastructure or Google Cloud infrastructure or any other some failing service. It happens, right? So you need to design your e-assessment solution to take this into account. And there are techniques like using multiple availability zones. So if any of those services fail, you are not impacted, right? The test needs to go on for all the test takers, right? So that's another key feature of the scalability. Accessibility. So here I used a quote from North Carolina State University, and this is really the mindset we adopted at OAT. That is basically, and it's quite common to see that the strategy to be a bit more inclusive in your digital solution is first to build a product for 98% of the population, and then say, oh, we might need to do something for the remaining 2% of the population having special needs, right? And then kind of build specific feature or specific version for that 2%. We think this is very wrong. I think we need to think the design of our product in general from the get-go for 100% of the population. We need to take into account that we are not all clones of each other. There are differences. Some people will need different accessibility measures, but we need to basically design the system for all. And I'm going to use this nice illustration here, where basically there is a stair with snow on it, and there is a ramp with snow on it. And you could argue that, okay, let's go with 98% of the population. Let's remove the snow from the stair, and then we will take care about this ramp, right? That's very wrong, again, right? And actually, if you clear the snow on the ramp, then you have a universal access for everyone, right? And this is what we want, right? And this is also what we noticed when we conducted some usability lab, etc. And by improving the solution to make it more accessible, actually, we made it accessible for everyone. So also for the 98% of the population left. Key features, but you will see that during the demonstration, we went for minimalist design user experience. So basically, we try to remove any distracting feature. We try to stick to the minimum set of features that are very relevant for the test taker, and only those test taker. We are fully compliant with WCAG AA level. They have different levels. So which is a requirement for a lot of stakeholders, especially ministries of education from Europe. And also, right, and because of this WCAG A compliance, we are screen reader friendly, right? So enough said. I think this is time now for the demonstration. All right. Okay. So I'm going to log in as a test taker into TAO Advance, and I'm just going to start a very small test that I have prepared. And here you can see basically our product called TAO Advance. And as you can see from right away, it is quite simple. We have at the top navigation, we have the actual item content. This is just an illustration. And then at the bottom, the navigation. So where the user can navigate from one item to another item. From here, we have all the keyboard navigation, right? So I can from here, I'm not using the mouse. I don't want to use the mouse. And I'm just using the keyboard to show you some of the features. Eccoci qui, bentornati su Radio. Right, so I'm just going to show you can basically handle all the controls. And this kind of keyboard navigation is usually friendly to accessibility devices. It relies on this kind of keyboard navigation. So let me show you a bit further. Here I'm using my up and down arrow keys, and then I can select my right response. I can also move to the next item, let's say, and then from here I can select my next response. You see, right, obviously I can still use the mouse, and we have also some, from our usability lab, we noticed some feedbacks in terms of getting feedback that you responded to one item or not, etc. Like here, I can see that the third item, I did not respond to this item. We have also, because this interface is fully WCAG AA compliant, it contains all the markup behind the scene that allows for screen readers. I don't have the time to show you the screen reader part, but basically screen reader will describe a little bit interface, saying that there is a navigation part where you are on this item right now. There is the item. Do you want to jump on the item? And then there is a navigation pane. Do you want to jump to the navigation pane? And then the user can interact basically with the item based on the read aloud, and which is not the case of a system that hasn't been designed with such a WCAG AA compliance. So this is our test runner. Going quickly through it, you can see some of the item. Here again, I mean, we have different interaction in TAO. We support 17 interaction from QTI. And here you can either go with typing, or you can go with the mouse, you can go by clicking. There are always different alternatives to interact with an item. So this is our TAO Advance product. Now I would like to show you a different side of the product with respect to remote proctoring solution. Basically, this kind of capability that allows you to check that a test taker is not cheating to a test. And I'm going to launch now another test. Yeah, I'm on the right environment. Let me launch this very simple test. This test here is going to trigger a service that we use that is called Proctorio. It's a very nice service of remote proctoring capabilities. It basically starts to do a few pre-checks. So it's going to take the control over my camera. I'm not sure how it will interact with the conferencing system here. We will see. Is going to take control over my screen sharing, because this tool is going to track everything I'm going to do. Next step here, once I've identified myself with my ID, is basically I take this test as I have shown before from TAO Advance. It's just that I know that I'm tracked, everything on the camera, my screen sharing. This remote proctoring solution that is integrated with TAO Advance is going to capture that. Oh, maybe let me just do this now. It's going to capture that I'm watching elsewhere. So if I just do this, it's going to detect that. If I am, if someone in the room is speaking to me, right, like behind the screen, it will detect that, right? Let me just go next here, and I'm going to start the exam. And as you can see here, we have again our test delivered by TAO. This is a different flavor of the test, but you can see here I have some feedback that I'm being recorded, right? It's going to track all of this. And then the next step, basically, is for Proctor to review all that. I'm not going to finish this test, but for Proctor can then basically access all this data. Let me show you. So here it's a bit more technical part, but let me just quickly jump to basically I'm asking now TAO to show me the Proctorio review, right? So that is all the data captured during those assessment sessions. All right. Right, so this is the Proctorio service where the proctor can basically check all the evidences captured from the assessments delivered with our product TAO Advance. And as we can see here, we have a couple of sessions from a few test takers, including one I took a bit earlier. If we click on one of the particular session, we can basically get access to all the video stream, right? I could play this. I can also get access to all the screen sharing from that particular session. Conveniently, we have a timeline of this session with some insights about those moments that are highly suspicious, right? I have a global indicator about the suspicion level, but I have then some specific time where something wrong happened at this time. So if I click on one and I move to the incident report, I get that the audio levels in the room increased about the expected levels. I can also move to another time of this session and check the incident level. Test taker navigated away from the quiz page, right? And here I can basically access some information about this kind of interaction. So I probably move to another tab and I can get information about what I did. I went on Google and I was searching for the response to a question. So here, Proctorio service is quite right that this is a good hint that I cheated to this test. So in a nutshell, this is what remote proctoring solution allows us to do, get all those evidences. There are plenty of features into this service, and the takeaway is that TAO is integrated with this kind of remote proctoring solution, so we can enable that. probably more relevant for certification market. Thank you very much to everyone, and I will happily respond to any question via the chat. Thank you.